Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review. I just did stuff with a bunch of Halloween themed episodes, and now I'm going to do a regular movie review, but this time it's just going to be two movies, and it's both of them very similar in storyline and everything else, so that's why I'm going to combine these two shows together. And the two movies I'm going to be talking about, is they both came out around the same time. One is called The Man in the Moon, and the other one was called My Girl, the original My Girl movie. And both came out around the same time in I think it was like October, November 1991. And I'm going to be talking about My Girl in a minute. I'm going to talk about The Man in the Moon, because both movies are very similar. In terms of, it was both growing up period pieces. The Man in the Moon took place in the 1950s. I think 1958 or 59. My Girl took place in 1972 in Pennsylvania, and The Man in the Moon took place in the South. And both movies have a tragic death in it. And both movies was the very first movie appearance and The Man in the Moon was the very first movie that Reese Witherspoon did, and My Girl was the very first role for Anna Klumsky. But My Girl got more publicity and has the biggest stars and name recognition in it. But The Man in the Moon, you had Sam Worthington from Law and Order, you had Tess Harper, and like I said, Reese Witherspoon, and I forgot the actress's name who plays the older sister, Maureen. But The Man in the Moon, like I said, took place in 1959 in the South. I don't know if it's like Mississippi or the Carolinas or something. There's a story about Reese Witherspoon's character named Danielle, who everybody calls Danny for short. And it's like during the summer of, I think, 1959, she goes to the local pond, and she goes for a swim just about every day. But she goes swimming. She goes skinny dipping. Well, in the movie, I think the movie was like a PG or PG-13 movie, so she didn't really see anything. And besides that Reese Witherspoon, maybe I think she was maybe like 12 or 13 years old, and the time she did this role. So naturally, of course, you're not going to see a 12 or 13-year-old girl naked or totally naked in any type of movie, even if it's an R-rated movie. We're not going to show it. So anyways, so one day she goes swimming in the pond, and in this abandoned house, because the house was unoccupied, and the people who moved in there moved out like when Reese Witherspoon's character Danny was like a baby when they moved out. Well, guess what? They moved back, and she meets the son, or the oldest son, named Court. I think his name like Jeremy London, or I think it was like Jeremy or Johnny London. I think the kid's name was, who played the part. Court catches her, and she runs off, and they eventually became friends. And they got introduced themselves because the parents, or Danny's parents, played by Tess Harper and Reese Witherspoon, and Sam Worthington, and they knew each other, and so they introduced them to the kids, and eventually, of course, like I said, Danny and Court became friends and went swimming sometimes. And it's one particular time where they were looking for Danny. Meanwhile, she was swimming with Court, and the mother was pregnant again with like the fourth kid, and she got hurt. And looking for Danny, and she went into like premature labor, and she may have died looking for Danny. So Sam Worthington comes home, takes off his belt, and starts ripping Reese Witherspoon in the film, which is a pretty violent scene for a movie like this. But the mother turned out to be okay, and she gave birth, and everything was going to be okay. And then Court became in love with the older sister Maureen. And of course, Danny got mad. She got all kinds of jealous over it, and she was quite confirmed because she found out that Maureen had sex, which of course wasn't mentioned. It was like her first time having sex. She had sex with Court. It was like really was like really the first time the two of them, two characters. Even though it wasn't really mentioned, but it was. And Danny got mad, and rightly so, and was going to confront Court about it. And while she was on her way to confront Court over this, how dare you have sex? How dare you do this to me? You betrayed me and all this stuff. Court was mooring in particular part of the farm, or his farm. He fell off the tractor and was run over by said tractor and was killed. And Danny saw Court's mother holding the body. It was all bloody and stuff. And she ran home to Sam Wallaston, and he came over and he was dead. So I found out that he was dead. He came over, and Sam Wallaston was actually had tears in his character had tears in his eyes, and said that Court's dead. And he said, "Oh." That Danny was upset, and so Maureen was more upset than she was, because she claimed it was his first love, her first love, and all that stuff. And he's, a couple of hours after they had sex, he's dead. So naturally, of course, she's upset over it. And Danny talks to Sam Wallaston, but you don't know what Maureen did. And he said, "Oh, I know enough." And they pretty much made up with each other. Reluctantly, Israel came up to, made up with her. Not at first because she didn't want to forgive her, because they don't have a system anymore. Because of what you did with Court, because Court was my first love, and you took him away from me. She said that to Maureen. Look what you did. But they forgave each other at the end, and that was The Man in the Moon. But the movie that was very, very similar in nature was Mind Girl. And Mind Girl was more controversial for some reason than Man in the Moon. Was very similar in storyline, and got more controversial over it, because he had Macaulay Culkin in it, and this was his first movie role after Home Alone. And so his first movie after Home Alone, he dies by bee stings. But also you also had Dan Aykroyd, you had Jamie Lee Curtis, you had Griffin Dunn played Anna Klumsky's teacher. You had Richard Mason played Anna Klumsky's uncle. And I thought Mind Girl was better than Man in the Moon. Excuse me. Simply because of the fact that Macaulay Culkin dies. I can't stand Macaulay Culkin. Besides that, he was one of many children who was a lover of Michael Jackson. Right? Who Michael Jackson molested. Even though he never admitted that he got molested by Michael Jackson, but we know what happened. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that nothing happened. We know it didn't. I feel that did happen. They feel that they were lovers. But that's my own personal opinion. Right? So don't jump down my throat on that. And it was his first follow-up to Home Alone, and he gets killed. And he plays friends from Anna Klumsky's character. And they go on all these different adventures during the summer. And like I said, this movie takes place in 1972, so you have all the music from that time in this movie. And you had, like I said, I thought it was a better movie than Man in the Moon was. But unfortunately, because you see, when Macaulay Culkin dies, you see his body in the casket, and all the bee stings marks all over his face, and you see him in this white suit in the casket, which is, disturbing as it is to see a dead body, but see him calling Culkin in there, was disturbing. And of course, you have Anna Klowski doing this big emotional. Well, you could argue an overreaction. You could argue that if you see the movie, but it was a reaction nonetheless. And she ran out of the house to a teacher's house, so she was freaking out. She ran off. Didn't know where she was. The police were looking for her. And of course, after she came back and said, "Oh, he was my best friend." And actually, of course, he talks to Thomas J's mother. But unfortunately, so okay, he's dead. And got upset for all 5 minutes, in movie time, all 5 minutes, and then, she came back, and then that's it. She got over it. But it was like too fast in the movie for her to get over the death of allegedly her best friend. But in Man on the Moon, it was a little bit longer. It was a little bit longer period when they were mourning Court's death in the film. At least I think so. But it got controversial because Michael got the controversy because the producers of the film came out saying, "Oh, Macaulay Culkin does die in the end of the film," and that's pretty much it. So, oh, how can you kill off Macaulay Culkin? How can you kill off the Home Alone kid? How can you do that? That's outrageous. You can't do that. And of course, all the stupid Charles psychiatrists came out because this was like almost a family-friendly film, despite the fact of the death in it. This one and The Man in the Moon was The Man in the Moon was a little more serious. It's more serious. It's more of a serious tone than My Girl is, because My Girl has some, laughs in it. Not as much as Man in the Moon, but he had more so. I feel so because he had the bit with Annie Closey's character with her English with her teacher. And these are the days before the teacher had sex with the students, and she was more having sex with him, with the teacher, than the teacher had with her. And actually, of course, if the teacher ever did anything, that means one nowadays. And like I said, this movie was based in 1972, not 1991, when this movie is. If he gets away with that, he'd be in jail for the rest of his life, having sex with an 11-year-old. Because that's how old Anna Klowski's character was supposed to be in this movie, 11 years old. 12 years old. So he said, he would be in jail and labeled as a sex offender and everything else. But it was the opposite roles. She would be held as a hero, pretty much, or a cougar. But she was obsessed with the teacher, and of course, she found out that he was going to be engaged, and he was going to get married, and she got upset over that too, on Anna Klowski's character. First her friend dies, and then she finds out that the teacher's getting married. Well, what can you do, right? With that type of situation. But that's with My Girl. And I know I went pretty fast in these two movies, but these two movies are so similar that it's hard to distinguish one from the other. But The Man in the Moon is. Somebody did post that movie on YouTube, and see, the movie was good, but I like My Girl better. But I thought it was a little bit better, and I like the Anna Klowski, her portrayal in this film, because. You didn't. And the difference between My Girl and Man in the Moon is like Man in the Moon, you had kind of like the love triangle. Reese Witherspoon's character, the older sister, and Court. You had almost kind of like had a love triangle in that. In My Girl, there was no love triangle. There was no love scenes. There was no sexual scenes and no sexual innuendo type thing going on in there. And in Man in the Moon, you had all that stuff in there. So that's why I liked My Girl better, because it was more implied. But Man in the Moon, that stuff was not implied. You actually do see them, at least Court and Maureen anyway. You do see them lying in the ground on Court's farm, And you do see her afterwards getting dressed. She's wearing a bra and a slip. Afterwards, she's getting dressed. She's fumbling around, putting her clothes back on. And then they had sex. In My Girl, you didn't have any scenes like that in My Girl. Other than the fact that Dan Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis fell in love with each other. And that's what made it a little bit better for me, because you had Dan Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis. It was like the first movie they did together since Trading Places. And they did a second My Girl movie, like 3 years later, where Anna Clevsey goes out to California to find information on her mother. And she stayed with her uncle in California. The uncle that you saw in the first movie moved to California, and she stayed with him for a week during her Easter vacation. And she did a whole report on her mother, who died in childbirth. Which you find out in the first movie. It's I killed my mother. And she had all that guilt of possibly killing her mother. And so she did that, and that's well, the second movie wasn't that bad. I know it didn't get the reviews that the first one did, but I thought it was a decent sequel. At least it's a decent follow up to the first film. Now it's good, but watchable. At least for me, it was watchable. So that's my review for The Man in the Moon and My Girl. And please like the videos, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and like the video and comment on it. Feel free to comment on it. I can take criticism. And thank you for watching my videos, and hopefully tune out more soon. Thanks for watching.